In January 1991, the Flying Focus Video Collective formed as a subcommittee of the Coalition Against U.S. Military Intervention in the Middle East, producing Peace Action Network, in an attempt to take back the media and to use television as a tool for the people rather than one of corporate and governmental policy.
From July 1991 to November 1991, Flying Focus produced a program called Che's Lounge, P is for Perception, mixing studio footage and field footage. On November 18, 1991, Flying Focus began a weekly series called The Flying Focus Video Bus, a showcase of works of member producers and associated activists using video. The video bus is sometimes a finished piece, sometimes a work in progress, sometimes an event, sometimes a speaker, but it's always informative. In addition, Flying Focus has produced a lecture series, known in its most recent incarnation as Insightful Views. This format features forums, speakers, and events uncut, allowing audiences to soak in the entire context of featured alternative visionaries, rather than succumbing to mainstream notions of sound bites. The Z Media Institute series, featuring Noam Chomsky and other notables, has had 2 13-part runs, and occasionally you'll catch PDX Street Bites, person-on-the-street interviews on public policy issues with Bite. We produce programs at the 3 major cable access facilities in Portland. Some of our programs are available at lending libraries in several locations around town. Flying Focus is a nonprofit group of activists using video as a tool for social change, voicing the voiceless. For more information or to get involved, write us at 2305 Northwest Kearney, number 231, Portland, Oregon 97210, or call 503-239-7456 to get our office, or 321-5051 for show times.
Welcome to the Video Bus. This is the 4th Busiversary, and here is a little piece from Frank the Steelworker.
Hi. I've been with Flying Focus off and on now for the last 4 years, and I'm not really involved with them as an activist. I am more or less a person that kind of reacts to my neighborhood and the work environment that I work with. So some of the clips that you will see will deal with the things that I'm surrounded with every day. So would you like to take a look at some things I have produced? Are we rolling?
For the property on this side of the railroad bridge is that it would be a nice linkage with the proposal to have a cross-peninsula trail, which would go along the top portion of the cut, and it would take the old vacated Cary Boulevard and go right across the peninsula and give people a chance to bicycle and walk the entire width of the peninsula up to Portland Boulevard, Portland Road, and then head in towards Smith and Bybee Lakes. It would make a beautiful circular kind of bicycle ride and walking path. It would be wonderful. And then this would link us up to Cathedral Park. This piece of property here.
We were focusing our discussion on a piece of land that is being considered for a green space. Is that the right terminology?
No.
Okay. What is the right terminology?
The right terminology is it is open space, parks, streams, bond measure that is going to be moved forward. Green spaces was the last bond measure, and we're trying to move away from that name because it had different connotations.
New thinking. Okay. New thinking, new wording.
Well, the next piece that you'll see is called Ground Bob Day. It was a rally held in downtown Portland, and the reason why it's of significance is because the person that they're criticizing, Bob Packwood, was pretty instrumental in the workings of Gunderson Incorporated, where I work with. So I went down after the rally and talked to some of the co-workers I work with and asked them what they thought about Bob Packwood and what they might have to say about it. So let's go ahead and roll this clip of Ground Bob Day.
Well, you know he was involved in the scandal. Tell me about Packwood. Packwood
back in town.
Why are you doing this to me?
Do you know anything about Bob Packwood? Sex-craved maniac. He's what? Sex-craved maniac. Are you a sex-craved maniac?
Am I?
Yeah. But he's a sex-craved maniac.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, Bob Packwood's the one that says he saved our jobs.
Huh?
He says he saved our jobs here at Gunderson.
Well, we'll keep looking for old Ground Bob.
Leave me alone. I'm back in rehab.
In the meantime, Bobby, wherever you are, we have another...
What was really interesting dealing with the Ground Bob Day and some of the other things I've been following the story of Packwood is just recently the stocks of Gunderson went down about 13% or so, and now that Bob Packwood isn't in office anymore, I wondered how integral he was to the economic well-being of the company. Well, I don't have much to do with the that type of thing. I'm just I just work there. I'm just the work on the factory floor.
I've been with Flying Focus right since the start, and at the first few months that I was with Flying Focus, I didn't even know the front from the back end of a videotape, and now I've been involved in the production of at least 70 programs. So I think if I can do it, so can you. So get involved. I want to talk about the relevance of some of my programs. Just as Frank is saying that the program you might have done a couple of years ago still has some relevance today. The two clips I'm going to show tonight, both are extremely relevant today. The first one is about the situation in Chiapas. It was a tape of a rally last year. It was in February. At the time when I believe it was declared that the government declared that they had caught Subcomandante Marcos. As we speak today, a person that we interviewed last year when she was in Portland, Cecilia Rodriguez, has been raped in Chiapas. She is the delegate. She is the United States representative to the Zapatistas, and representing the Zapatistas and the people of Chiapas in this country. And she was brutally raped a week ago by 4 armed members of the Mexican army. So the things that are being said about Chiapas in this cut are as relevant today as they were back when the tape was made, if not more so. The second tape also has to do with violence against women. It's a program that we did about abortion, and we have an excellent interview, excerpts from an interview with Dr. Elizabeth Newhall, who could not be on the program. Then we had a panel in the studio that also discussed the issue of abortion clinic access. So I'm not going to say anything further. The two cuts will run one after the other. Roll tape.
When Mexican President Ernesto Zedillo announced the alleged identity of Zapatista leader Subcomandante Marcos and put a price on his head, 100,000 people marched through the streets of Mexico City shouting, "Nosotros somos Marcos," "We are Marcos." Throughout the world, sympathy marches are being staged. Portland is no exception. On February 17th, approximately 100 people turned out to demonstrate solidarity with the indigenous Mexican people. They rallied at Pioneer Square and marched to the Federal Building for a candlelight vigil.
Nosotros somos narcos. El PRI son puros narcos. Nosotros somos narcos.
Chiapas is an extremely rich region that the Zedillo government would like to take away from the indigenous peoples so that the Mexican government and foreign stock investors can rape and pillage yet another section of the world.
We suspect that this will be a continuing civil insurgency issue through the rest of the year, if not the decade. This will be until, of course, the PRI steps down and recognizes that there are democratic forces larger than its party interests and that Mexico wants to become a democratic country.
The indigenous people of Chiapas to the Zapatista Army for National Liberation accomplished in 12 days what it took the opposition in Mexico more than 50 years to accomplish.
Viva Zapata! Viva Zapata! Viva Marcos!
What does it feel like to be a target?
It feels like it must feel to be a warrior, in fact. It feels very alert and aware and cognizant at every moment. It doesn't feel fearful.
We need to organize and start a movement that will keep pushing on the system to move left rather than right.
The Nazis and the Klan and the anti-abortion fanatics really depend on the fear and intimidation, and really depend on people backing off and giving them the street.
When we could not get that woman into an ambulance, we were powerless, but we fought back using the system. We're talking about having, you know, people out there putting themselves on the line, you know, citizens or counter demonstrating at clinics. It's extremely dangerous. These people are dangerous. We're talking about people that are willing to shoot people.
I'm Jim Wrathall, and I've been with Flying Focus Video Collective pretty much from the beginning, and some other videographers and myself have in addition to Flying Focus, have created a sort of a fraternal or a brother collective that works with Flying Focus a lot. One of the pieces that I did is the radio guy, the complete radio guy, or the total radio guy, I believe is the name. And the reason for doing that is that I think that one of the most tightly held illusions in this country is the illusion that we have freedom of the press. And I found that if you talk to people about this, if you tell them that we don't, if they don't know this, they get angry. If they do know this, they say, well, what's new? And so I find that if they get angry, these are the people that need to know that this is an illusion more than anyone. And so the approach that I've taken is to teach people how to use shortwave radios themselves, to listen to news that emanates from other parts of the world. And the show initially was just going to be about a half an hour long, and that was about 2 years ago. And it's been going over and over. It's been serialized, and it's continuing even to this day. So I think that I've hit upon something that's really working. People stop me in the street all the time and thank me for it. I get cards and letters all the time, and phone calls. So my work that I've done with Flying Focus has really done some good, I do believe. One of my fellow videographers here is PC Peri, and I believe he wants to say a few words. PC.
Thank you, Jim. Having been with Flying Focus for the 4 years now, almost 5, it's given me an opportunity to see many things happening, not only on the streets, but in our minds. And one of the things we've seen happen is that we've had an opportunity to change our minds. Something I've had to change my mind about is being quiet about this bumper sticker that says, "Kill your TV." Okay, so I'll be very quiet about this. Don't kill your TV. Or if you're going to kill your TV, also burn your books, join the company store, and be ignorant, because you won't have the opportunity to join in on the many things that you can do with speaking out. Listen to radio, read books, watch TV, and better yet, create all of those yourself. Be the producers on those, don't just listen to it. Let's see some of these clips and see if they say the same things. Roll tape.
Do you think freedom of speech should be limited?
No.
Why not?
I think that's what this country's founded on, is the freedom of speech, expression, and I think if there were any endangerment due to either expressions by people's actions or by the words that they say, that there should be erected forums for debate, but rather than simply to close them down by some kind of a template of censure.
Do you know of any models that exist where freedom of speech has been limited and the way that it's expressed, as you've just expressed, is done?
Well, I think the easiest is to look at history. Historically, certainly the Chinese have experienced that in all parts of this country, and I'm sure that other races have known and experienced it as well. And I think to answer to your first question is, I think every community needs a different way of having these forums for debate and for expression with each other to share ideas and to find creative solutions. And there's no one way now in this diverse America to simply say there is one way to doing it. There's just no way of doing that. And the challenge to our national leaders is really to create these forums regionally, and depending on whether it's New Orleans or whether it's Chinatown, San Francisco, or right here in Portland or anywhere else, Hawaii, say. And then for the national leaders also to find ways in which these forums could speak to each other. But simply to clamp down with one way of censure and say this is okay and this is not okay, one sets up oneself to be really godlike in order to do that, and that's not what this country is founded on.
Thank you.
I will echo some of my concerns about the situation in Bosnia and apply them to the situation in the United States. I'm concerned about the breadth of political spectrum that there is in the United States, and I find it to be pretty narrow. I don't know if it's quite as narrow as the political spectrum among the Bosnian Serbs, for example, or among the Bosnians themselves. But my experience in France has led me to see that the political discourse in America is very restrained to a very narrow spectrum, and is different ideas, original thinking is often marginalized and kind of rejected out of hand because it doesn't fall within the range of the political spectrum that's generally accepted. And, I think that's regrettable.
Actually, different people. I actually have this one guy who's in shooting black ears and shot most of the fear of disclosure, the HIV piece. He's a black man based in New York. Should be gay. He's so sweet. I mean, I hate to put it up, but he's so sweet and such a gentle man. He's not, but he just should be. Plus, he's gorgeous too. But he's so comfortable too. I mean, it's like. Some people just, even when they're politically okay about things, physically you can tell they're not quite comfortable. And it's like this man would just go up and hug everybody that I was interviewing on his own, the way he talked. And many of them thought he was gay, and he didn't bother to try to correct them. Usually sort of people let you know just in case. Sure. It wasn't like anybody was hitting on him, but they were just talking to him like he was a girlfriend. Right. And he didn't bother trying to say, oh, my wife this, because he could have easily introduced that, which is, he says, oh, I don't mind. So anyway, he's shooting black kids for me,
One of the things I like best about Flying Focus is that we go out and tape lectures of people that you wouldn't normally see on TV and put them on TV. So that if you're busy on that night or if you can't leave the house for some reason, then you get a chance to see these people that you wouldn't normally see anywhere. And two of the people that I taped this year are people that you probably wouldn't ever see on TV, but are pretty interesting to go see, are Chris Bradshaw and Peter Newman. And Chris Bradshaw talks about walking. He's from Canada, and he is a participant in a group called Ottawalk, and he is pretty philosophical about walking. And the other guy, Peter Newman, is one of what you might say, the founding fathers of traffic calming, and he has all sorts of ideas about ways to cut down on traffic or to make cities more pedestrian and people-friendly and get rid of the traffic. So here are two of those clips, and we'll take a look at that one right now.
We've produced called Automobile Dependence, the Irresistible Force. It's the first set of the new data from the work that we began on cities and automobile dependence, and you'll be able to get this from 1,000 Friends of Oregon. if you want to see some of the original material. We have been creating our cities and spending billions of dollars creating these pyramids, and they really do a great deal of damage to cities. And not just US cities. This is Birmingham in the UK, and most cities in the world have played around with this kind of technology. And not only the old cities are still based around walking and cycling, where 35% of all trips are by bicycle, but new cities. Almere is a new town in Holland, which has a similar kind of modal split to the old cities like Amsterdam and so on. And it's very dense. The roads are narrow. You can have a car and you can use it if you want, but it's pretty hard because it's hard to get around in the city based on that. You can get there a lot quicker by cycling, and it's structured that way.
So I will be first saying the subject is the itty-bitty city and how you can make your neighborhood more of an urban village by walking and talking locally. I want to first spend about half of my remarks on why your urban neighborhood should in fact be made more livable and more self-sufficient, and what in the hell it has to do with anything other than just the narrow interests of a bunch of people who don't tend to walk and think that anyone who does anything else is sort of in their way, which is almost the same attitude voters have towards us. In our more formal modern life, we tend to spend 90% of our day very structured, doing everything we can. This young person who said they wanted to be able to get places and get there on time is very much what modern life has led us to believe. We have so many obligations, we have to get there, and then at the end of the day, we reward ourselves by sitting around and taking it easy. And we are not often ready to get into our kids' and our spouses' refractory period when we want to be on our reflectory period. With walking, in fact, walking is a beautiful activity in itself because you both refract and reflect at the same time. I think too much today we don't have enough of our life spent doing either of those activities, let alone keeping them in balance.
Hi, my name is Dan Handelman, and like Moss, I have a couple of interests that I tend to come back to again and again. One of them is kind of political process and particular questions of socialism and anarchism, and I did a roundtable discussion this year with people who are self-proclaimed anarchists, I guess would be how the mainstream media would call it. I'm going to show a clip from that, and then I also have some other clips about police accountability, which you'll be seeing. I guess I really want to say that Flying Focus is a great outlet for my creative side. I do a lot of organizing work too, and sometimes that sort of, I feel like I need a way to put things together, package them in a way that are entertaining to people, and that's why I like working with Flying Focus. So if those clips are ready, here's the show on anarchism.
I think that two things that I feel very strongly about anarchism is that we need to change our society so that we're governed in very small units, that people govern themselves in units that are below 1,000 people, certainly, and that we ought to topple the economic system, which is capitalism, and that people, instead of being controlled by investment bankers on Wall Street who make decisions about their lives, ought to make their own decisions about their workplaces. Mm-hmm. And I think part of that is certainly feeding ourselves, which is a very basic thing, which probably most of us in this circle, most people watching us, don't have much to do with feeding ourselves, other than that we go to the supermarket and buy some food and cook it. And I think that something that's really important is that people have some connection to where their food is coming from, and not be an economic connection, that we not monetarize and economicize the basics of living.
Really, what anarchy really means is that there's no system, there's no organized government, and to my mind that implies self-government, because if there is no government, then no one's telling you what to do, then heck, someone has to decide what you're going to do. I guess it's going to be you, right?
One public policy issue I cover a lot on Flying Focus is police accountability. I did a program about 3 parents of people who'd been shot by police who I met at the National Conference on Police Accountability in 1994.
But at one point, we do know that the officers billy clubbed my son in the living room, but in the end, my son had killed an officer, and the surviving officer had killed both my son and my husband, who was in the wheelchair.
My son was killed in Hayward, California by a barrier rapid transit cop. He said he fired a warning shot, which was 2.5 feet off the ground, which was we say was a clear miss. He then fired another shot, hitting him in the back of the head.
My son was out that night and he was trying to commit suicide. There was 8 officers there. 2 of them, they shot at my son and killed him. This later on went to the grand jury and they said it was a justified shooting.
Okay, so if there's enough time, we'd like to show you some stuff from our show about critical mass. But otherwise, we'll just be saying goodnight from Flying Focus Video Collective, and thanks for watching the 4th Busiversary show.
Don't go away, because they got to watch part 2 next week.
Yeah, that's right, next week at the same time.
Next week, part 2.
Sir, do you realize that it is a general order that you need to give me your name and BPST number as an officer of the Portland Police Bureau?
Take a hike.
I'm asking you for your name and your BPST number.
I told you I'm not giving it to you, because you don't need to know it. If you need to know it, you will get it.
Okay. You are disregarding the general orders?
Obviously, you don't know the general order. Okay. Have a nice day.
That was a very friendly response from that police officer. It seems that there's a general order here, marked number 312.50 in the police general orders. And it says, all members in uniform will carry their bureau-issued identification card and display their badge and bureau-issued name tag on their outermost garment. Furthermore, when on duty or representing themselves as having official capacity, all members will identify themselves by name and BPST number upon request. Upon demand, identification will be presented in writing or through the presentation of a bureau-issued business card.
Hi, I'd like to borrow a Flying Focus video.
Oh, okay. They're right over there on that rack.
Okay.
Alrighty, which one is it there? Anarchist Riot. Fun. Okay. Well, it's pretty simple. Give us your name and address and phone there. And Flying Focus makes up these handy-dandy study guides and evaluations that they encourage you to fill out and return to us.
Okay, thank you.
In addition to our lending library at Laughing Horse Books, Flying Focus programs are available to borrow at Oregon Peace Institute Resource Center, 223 Freedom and Mutual Aid Center, and Cosmos. If you missed them on cable TV, or you want to have a discussion with friends, family, or in a classroom, call us at Flying Focus to find out more about the lending library. Our phone number is 503-321-5051.
Hi, and welcome back to the Flying Focus Video Bus's 4th Busiversary. We produced this program for 4 years in the same time slot. Perhaps some of you are regular viewers. I hope so. If not, maybe you can tune in every week at the same time you're seeing the show and catch our show again and again. We cover a variety of issues. As you just saw, we have some tapes available at lending libraries around the city. Some of those tapes are here with us in the studio tonight. Right now, one of the people who was going to introduce some of the clips of what she worked on for the last year isn't with us. She's in Las Vegas, and she called in with a comment, and she wants to show clips from the shows that she worked on. Her name is Liz Stiller.
Hi, I'm Lisa Stiller, and right now I'm living in Las Vegas, Nevada, but in my heart, my home is still Portland, Oregon. Because I myself was very skeptical about legalizing marijuana and being very anti-drug, and having worked with kids and kids who are on drugs, I have very strong feelings about that. But I also believe that as journalists And as videographers, it is our duty to examine all topics, no matter how we feel about them. As a result of both the video I did and all the research I did for a newspaper article I did afterwards, I now believe differently, and I really do believe that there is a place in our society for marijuana legalization. So hopefully others who saw the show also got information that would help them make some important decisions.
When you talk about controlled substance, in this case what you're talking about is criminalized substance, and that's really quite a difference, because in a private sector free enterprise system, there's a series of checks and balances that already exist. Supply and demand, the consumer has the ability to seek certain kinds of quality and things like that, and the community can put restraints, such as saying, well, if people are going to sell marijuana, they have to be a mile away from a school, for example, or that they're not allowed to drive when they're smoking, or that something along, they have to be 18 years or 21 years old to use it. But when you put it in the criminal underground, that's no longer applicable.
I agree. I think that's abdication of responsibility. Prohibition is not control, but it's abdication of responsibility.
Okay.
I think that freedom of speech, along with any other types of censorship, should never be limited. I think that it's an infringement of our constitutional rights, and I think that once we begin to limit freedom of speech, we'll take off to begin oppression of other sorts.
Another one of our members who couldn't be here tonight is Jerry, who is out in eastern Oregon counting owls, and we haven't heard from him, but we expect to soon. Jerry and I worked on a program together about a couple of rallies, and we put them together in one program. One was a rally in front of the clinic, or actually the home of a person who publishes an anti-abortion magazine and who has not protested, at this point at least, had not protested to the killings at the abortion clinics. The other one is a celebration, or I won't say it's an anti-celebration probably, of the 4th anniversary of the Persian Gulf War.
In the wake of accelerated violence at abortion clinics by people calling themselves pro-life, several anti-abortion groups have denounced those who advocate murder. A Portland-published journal called Advocates for Life, however, did not denounce the murderers. A vocal group of pro-choice advocates turned out to protest.
We thought it was important to show that the Advocates for Life in Portland are not unopposed in Portland, that the national word they put out to have violent attacks on abortion clinics is something that people in this town don't agree with, and that people all over the country need to oppose in a very vocal way.
Those chains can't be broken by the light within our hearts. There must be a better way. This must be the place to start. Come back where you belong. Come on down to the valley, shine a light.
I have a dream that all Iraqi children and people may in some way be able to live in freedom.
Gross human rights violations still continues in East Timor until today.
How many wars are going on right now because of the arms that the Western world, America, England, and many other countries have sold to other countries that, of course, they're going to use guns and bombs and shells. They're not just going to put them in a cabinet and leave them there.
Okay. Hi, I'm Dan, as I said before, and I wanted to show some clips from programs I worked on over the last year. The first one's about what was going on in Bosnia-Herzegovina as far as U.S. military intervention. There was a time at the end of August when they started using cruise missiles and smart bombs to drop on the Bosnian Serbs.
knows the difference between a Bosnian and a Serbian and a Croatian or a UN peacekeeper. No bomb knows who's a combatant in a war or who's just a civilian. No bomb can know an animal from a building or a factory from a munitions plant. So it's very important that you stop believing everything you hear from the U.S. media, and that you question when people tell you that bombs are smart or that surgical strikes are possible, because there's no such thing as a surgical strike. People are dying on the other ends of those bombs.
We also arranged for a studio interview with a woman who'd been to Bosnia a few times. Her name is Yvonne Simmons, and I worked with PC Peri on that show. And we also worked on a show about Mumia Abu-Jamal. What do you want to say about those shows?
Well, we used to want to say that what was happening in Yugoslavia could potentially happen here. So look at what was happening there so it won't happen here. Well, it's gone beyond that point, and it looks like it may be happening here. So stay tuned on that. Mumia, it's happening here. It's happening to too many people, and the words justice keep coming up, and now we have to examine what it means.
Just a little background on Mumia Abu-Jamal. He's a political prisoner in the United States from Philadelphia. He's on death row. There's some clear evidence that he probably didn't commit the murder of a police officer that he's on death row for, and that's what the show was.
And the main thing about that is, it isn't so much whether he did or did not commit the crime. The main thing is, can justice as a process be worked?
Sometimes they say, well, you know, we've survived 3 years, but is my name on that bullet? Is my name on that shell? Is my name, you know, because people are killed daily there, and you have to, and you never know. It's random. It's like living in a very large prison where the jailers shoot and kill and do all these things willy-nilly, how they want to do it every day. I think that peace is a way of life, and I don't see it any differently. I think that it's the way you live and what you believe in. You know, I mean, sometimes you know, people say, well, what do you do for peace? I try to live it, and in living it, you also bring that to the other people. And there's no way that, for example, when I got into Sarajevo, there was no way that I could promote the kind of peace that I do here, because they were being killed every day. I was in the same situation. The feelings and emotions that you get when you're with the people are so incredible. You have very real relationships with people. When I was in Sarajevo, I really felt good about what I was doing, because the people responded continually. And all the places that I was, it was incredible. They didn't expect me to be there. And they had been used to people using them, like making a television show or an article or something like that. They said, well, Yvonne isn't here she's here and she's trying to help us. And I told them that there's a lot of people that want to help them. That they're not on their own, that we are here to help them and to try and find a way.
Never in my wildest dreams would I ever think that it would happen to me, because you always say what happens to the other fellow. But when I was on trial and I exercised the purely constitutional right to defend myself, and it was denied, it went through me like a thunderbolt. I was like, wow, you know, it can happen. It is happening, and it happens every day.
We're not here talking so much about whether or not he is guilty or innocent, but rather what the process was and how that process permitted this so-called travesty to happen. I'd like to talk with you, Jeff, and see if you can tell us a little bit about the kinds of protests that have been going on in the city of Portland.
The things that we began working on right away were putting up posters about the case, sending out information to people, and our phone number so that people could get in touch with us. We planned 2 benefit concerts with using local musicians and storytellers, and basically not so much to raise money, but to have activities that were drawing people together, that were raising consciousness about the whole issue, just creating more noise just in the whole general atmosphere of the whole city, just about Mumia Abu-Jamal. And the other thing that we had planned was a rally, which was also very successful. Same thing, just by having as many people who showed up and having posters around town that, about the rally and about Mumia Abu-Jamal, we raised so much awareness about the case and drew so many people in to ask questions and find out what is this about.
Today I take this stand that the African and Native struggles unite in solidarity, that members of all races, of every sacred color unite. There are many good people in the world, and we are spread out and working on our own issues. If we join hands, mountains will move. There are few human beings with the eloquence and the effectiveness to be the voice of the struggle for civil and social rights. Mumia is one of that handful. The world cannot afford to lose him. In the spirit of Crazy Horse, Leonard Peltier.
Hi, my name is Barb Greene. I helped the Flying Focus Video Collective tape the rally for Mumia Abu-Jamal. I'm a Flying Focus fan because I strongly believe in their purpose of using video as a tool for social change. So if you're interested in working with a group of hardworking, dedicated, committed, and certified people, I highly recommend the Flying Focus Video Collective.
Hi, I'm Tom Civiletti. I'm a sometimes Flying Focus worker. My largest involvement was actually a few years ago when George Bush came to town, and we did a live remote and try to keep tabs on what the police were doing and what the demonstrators were doing, and luckily we didn't get overrun or get our heads beaten. It's easy to underestimate the importance of an organization like Flying Focus. Although there are a few alternative printed media around the country, there's really very little in electronic media. We're lucky in this city to have cable radio, which is very rare, but as far as TV, which is where most people get their information, what you get is almost 100% a corporate viewpoint on things, which means you're going to get a lot of crime stories, you're going to get a lot of dog stories, you're going to get a lot of things which were important 5 years ago and a lot of things which are not at all important today. Flying Focus is talking about what is important now and what is going to be important in the near future. Without that kind of a media, democracy can't work, and my feeling is that is why democracy doesn't really work very well in this country at this point. What we need is a lot more Flying Focus and Flying Focus type organizations all around this country to make a real change in things.
You may notice that we do tape a lot of rallies. One of the reasons Flying Focus got started is that when the United States was bombing the Persian Gulf, there were big rallies, there were huge rallies, and we got minimal coverage, just as rallies all over the country and all over the world got minimal coverage. So it appeared, if you were watching mainstream media, as if the country was really behind this war in a big way. And many of us felt really frustrated that there was no networking, there was no coverage that showed that people really opposed this involvement. So we started taping rallies then, and we still tape them now. So the next cut that I'm going to show is another assemblage of 2 rallies. This one was put together shortly after the bombing at Oklahoma City, when people were talking about, you know, how can this kind of violence happen here in this country, and the mainstream media was sort of expressing shock and rage, and certainly everybody was shocked and enraged, but in the meantime there is a lot of violence that goes on with government sanction.
The Oregon Community for War Tax Resistance demonstrated on tax day against excessive spending by the United States military. A graph in the form of balloons, with one balloon per $5 billion, compares United States military spending to that of the next 10 countries. The United States column soars above the rest. Why? Because the Pentagon budget is $128 billion per year. The next highest military budget is Russia, with $47 billion.
As can be seen through our visual display, the United States spends more than the 10 next governments combined on military purposes. As we enter this new political era, where more and more budget cuts will be made against the marginalized in our society, it is clear that our country's priorities do not favor the well-being of its citizens regarding basic quality of life issues, but rather the buildup of weapons of destruction. Destruction of not only our most precious resources, us, but also the destruction of our planet Earth.
One of the interests that I have is in the way that the United States treats other countries, and one of the countries in the world that the United States treats worst of all is Cuba. I've done a lot of programs about Cuba, and through them have met a person who is Cuban and who participated from the time that we met her in several of Flying Focus productions. When Sarah died, I did a program about her and showed a lot of the footage that we had taken of her at different events and talked about her life.
Flying Focus today honors a friend who was one of our most active supporters and a participant in many of our productions.
My name is Sara Ribeiro. I was born in Cuba, came to United States in April 1969 because my husband wishes, and I love Cuba very much, and I want to stop the embargo in Cuba. Is not fair and it's not rational.
My mom felt alienated, and I think that they kind of shunned her a little bit. So she felt very much alone. Her ideas really isolated her. And when we came here to Oregon, she found the same thing to be true, even though, to a lesser extent. And it wasn't until she connected with people from Hands Off Cuba, Campaign for Peace with Cuba, that she felt that she had, found a group of people of like mind. And it wasn't until then that I saw her really blossom. It wasn't until she became politically active again in this country that she had the opportunity to really express herself and really come into herself again, which was really wonderful because I hadn't seen that part of my mom since I was a little girl. It had lain dormant in this country for so many years, and it wasn't until just a few years ago that that came out again.
One of the things about working with Flying Focus is, as I've done shows over the years, I've helped define my voice. And one of the things that's surprised me is that my voice is basically a conservative one. I want them to stop making clear cuts. I want them to stop breaking environmental laws. I want them to stop dropping bombs. So, and that's reflected in some of these clips. So take a look at those.
Make no mistake about it, every single environmental protection measure that we have put in place will be undermined by preventing its enforcement if this Dole regulatory reform bill becomes law. We've got to stop it. let's do some long-range thinking of our own. A long-range message, get political. Let's take Earth Day 1996 and move it to Election Day at every level, local, state, and national, and vote some people who care about the Earth, who care about healthy communities, who care about jobs, into office. Yeah. Why is this important? Well, Newt Gingrich said we had a big mandate. Do you know how big his mandate was? Only 38% of the people voted, and they got half of them. That means 19% of the people put this crowd of environmental destroyers in office. We've got more of the public with us. The vast majority of the American people support our agenda. Let's get out at the polls, the one day when we can exercise multiple leverage and make a difference. All right.
And when a species is endangered, it means it's almost extinct, it's almost gone, it's in peril. And it might not be there too much longer. And one of the main causes of this currently is the loss of habitat. So they're losing their homes, basically. So species depend on their habitat for survival. Conversely, habitat depends on the species within it to survive. So a habitat depends on the species for making soil. Basically, the species are the building blocks of those ecosystems, of those habitats. And an ecosystem meaning all the elements within an environment, be they the living species, the rocks, the soil, the water, the air. That's an ecosystem. On a global level, all of these put together, wild species help to regulate global climate and atmosphere, and in turn, that benefits humans as well. It comes right back to that again. These species that make up the ecosystems are vital to those ecosystems, and we need those ecosystems as well for our water, for our air, for our food, and for the places that we live too.
So France was going to go and blow up some bombs.
They're going to blow up
ocean.
500 megaton bombs, which are comparable in size to Hiroshima, and the effects from that right on the water would of course be a lot worse than Hiroshima for the aquatic environment, for the marine environment.
Greenpeace was already there, or
Greenpeace has been there 10 years ago. Greenpeace was in the same area protesting the testing that they had already been doing, and that was back when the Cold War threat was very real to them. The communist threat was real, and the French government resented Greenpeace's work. This is a little book about it called You Can't Sink a Rainbow. It's the 10-year anniversary of the bombing of the Rainbow Warrior, and basically what they talk about in this is the history behind the French becoming very irritated with us.
I'm so glad you're here. I just want to tell you that when people make these ribbons, they feel less angry, less afraid, and more committed than ever to protect the earth. And in creating the ribbons, there's a great sense of healing. All over the nation, people threaded their needles to create something beautiful, to affirm the hope present in all of our lives. The ribbon will encourage Senator Hatfield, encourage him to move ahead with resolve to protect Opal Creek in the early days of December. But thank you all for coming.
So that's our 4th year Busiversary, 4 years of doing the Flying Focus video bus, and this has been Elizabeth, Dan, PC, myself, Moss, and the other testimonials that we've had here. We'd like to thank everybody for appearing on the show and helping out with the show, and everybody who did all sorts of work to get the show on the air. So thanks, and we'll see you next year.